We can all take pictures afterwards. Here you go.
All right, so.
You want to dim the lights a little, or we'll leave that?
It's all right. It's fine. So my presentation today is how to be a wizard. And what I want to talk about is, I don't want to talk about, I could just open up and talk about myself, my company, and I'll maybe get into that a little bit later, but I really wanted to kind of focus on the creativity and invention side of things. And so I want to talk about creativity and invention, entrepreneurship, and how entrepreneurship gives us freedom to invent and capitalize on our invention. Entrepreneurship. I need some like dry ice or something. Entrepreneurship through invention and the business, and then I'll kind of talk about my company a little bit too. So, unlike Gandalf the Great or Merlin, which is kind of like what I'm supposed to do, most of us have to work at being a wizard. Once you're able to harness the magic of science and the wizardry of innovation, nothing can stop you from success. Creativity and innovation through science stem from multiple factors. So I separated these in three different categories: academic, university, and our professors, teachers. You cannot invent something without learning the fundamentals, the foundations of what it is your career and research is going to contribute later on in life. Research and development. There's a reason RE is a prefix for the word research. We learn from trial and error, and research is the key fundamental. So it's interesting, that whole concept of RE in research came from a doctor I worked with a long time ago at he was product safety lab. Wow. My magic precedes me. So yeah, Dr. Grover, he's at Eurofins now, but he teaches at Rutgers in New Jersey. But he told me that we were doing a clinical study for insulin drug, and he told me that I'm just going to leave it there. We had some issues with the protocol of the drug design that we had, and it just didn't go the way we planned on it. And our scientists were getting upset and stuff like that. And Dr. Grover looked at me and said, "Look, there's a reason why re is in research. You have to constantly redo stuff." And the last category, maybe I should just format it. Science is learned, but is also an art. Okay. So how do you learn to invent something if it has not yet been invented? So that's just like science is factual, and you need to know the fundamentals, as in academic university professors, but there is kind of an art that has to be somewhat contributing to that invention, because if it's never been done before, then how do you know how to invent something? Albert Einstein said, "If the facts don't fit the theory, then change the theory." Sure, go for it.
I think that's going to format your drawing.
I guess it could format the drive, but apparently it can't. All right, so understanding that not everything can be solved by mathematical equations is important when doing research and development. It's still necessary, but nonetheless important to understand that sometimes science cannot be explained by means of 2 + 2 = 4. Sometimes 2 + 2 = 5. This is when creativity becomes our asset. Instances where creativity becomes necessary, we have to rely on intuition or trial and error. Sometimes we have to see what is not there. Creativity can be influenced by many things: unique experiences, seeing me up here talking to you, being different, art and music all play a role in broadening our creative thinking. So, the art of science. So here we have a rose. This is what we see, rose petals. When we look at a rose a little bit closer, And then we have a rose petal under stereo microscope. Understand the intricacy. It allows us to see what we typically see in a different light. Innovation, an innovation killer is looking at everything for what it is and not what it could be or what is beyond the obvious. Prediction based on science and math fundamentals combined with the art of science enable beauty to reveal itself, which then can lead to invention. So the whole concept is, if you take what you learn in the fundamentals, 2 + 2 = 4, combine that with art, combine that with the side of your brain that kind of helps contribute to invention, you end up really being creative and seeing things that are more out of the box. So here, when creativity becomes our asset, that is when entrepreneurship is born. So you really, in research and development beyond academia, if you really want to truly have inventions and patents and things like that, combining that creativity side of things with what it is you learned in school and the research that you're doing and with your mentors, then you really can spawn a lot of invention. Steps to success. So as I said before, first learn in research and development, invention, which can lead to entrepreneurship. So once you have that invention, then that's when you can capitalize on the invention. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about myself. So yeah, as Dr. Olof said, I went to San Diego State, primarily in liposomal encapsulation, viral transfection, protein ligand augmentation. So I have experience in taking things like ribonucleic acids, small interfering ribonucleic acids, and transfecting them to viruses to help cell knockdown, help what's called receptor-mediated endocytosis, and also different cell targeting for injection. And then in 2003, I co-founded VIRUN. And VIRUN is a biotechnology company, and we study drug delivery and food and beverage technology. We have 35 employees, and we have over 45 patents and patents pending worldwide. VIRUN is an acronym for virus and immune. A lot of people don't know that. I actually had I had someone like 2 months ago contact me. They thought our company was named after the Hindu god of water. So it's interesting because we have today's society. You have a lot of influence from internet all over the world, and people have always had their own interpretation of what VIRUN means to them. I remember when we first got into the food and beverage industry about 2007. Our company was founded on drug delivery technology. We had people come up to us and say, you can't go into the food and beverage business and call your company something that sounds like a virus. It's really bad. And I told them, well, that's the name of our company. There's nothing I'm going to change about that. So we kept going, and what's interesting is no one has ever come on or had thought that our company was in some way associated with viruses. Those people had thought back then. In fact, people are coming up saying, hey, is your company named after the god of water? Had someone say that our company needs some spring river or something because it's Austrian for hot spring. It's just really bizarre. But anyway, it's an acronym for virus and immune. In 2003, we formed as a drug delivery biotech company, which we still are, and we patented the first oral antiviral transfection system that binds transferrins, immunoglobulins, and albumins to different proteins and peptides. Our goal was to transfect proteins and peptides by not using viral agents. So transfection of viral agents, you take a specific protein sequence of a virus and you transfect that onto a protein, and then that helps invade the cell, invade your system, much like a virus does. We use the same same drug model, delivery technology model, but we use antiviral, so that uses your natural immune system. As transferrins delivering iron into the body, we transfect it with a protein, and it delivers the protein drug with it. And in 2005, we developed nanotechnology using novel diester vitamin E, basically, succinic acid polymers. We call it DP technology. It produces small particle size, 5 to 35 nanometer particle size, and it increases. When we did the studies in 2005 for drug delivery, we found that our vitamin E polymer actually didn't absorb into blood plasma. It improved the oral bioavailability of compounds, but it wouldn't actually absorb, the excipient wouldn't absorb itself. So it was good for drugs, but it was also bad because for drug applications, you want the actual, what's called a micelle, the particle that's delivering the compound, you want that to absorb into blood plasma so it can act as a second tier to reach the blood-brain barrier, red blood cell, whatever it is that you're targeting. So what was interesting in 2007, we were presented by industry wanting to develop a nanotechnology, a micelle particle, where it delivered the compound, but the particle itself would not absorb. So we're like, hey, we got something. So we took this off the shelf. We got what's called a HSA opinion, the European Food Safety Authority opinion, GRAS status, showing that it didn't absorb, that it was safe. And a good analogy that we have is we compare that to other compounds that are on the market, like polysorbates, polyoxyethylated compounds, which actually do absorb in the blood plasma. And so the FDA has regulated some of those compounds so that you can only use a certain amount. In some cases, you can't use those compounds at all. So our compound you can use because it doesn't absorb. And so we have the GRAS opinion from the FDA and the EFSA opinion. And that's that. And so our mass delivery technology, which is a little bit more interesting. That's our transparent delivery technology, where we transfect iron to proteins and peptides. When you have iron loaded to the transparent, that makes the transparent absorb to the body, penetrate cells quicker. It binds to what's called a liporeceptor protein. It mediates into the cell, binds to a second liporeceptor protein, drops off the protein that you're delivering, then recycles back out, say in your gut, looking for more iron to pick up in order to mediate back into the cell wall. So hollow transparent is an iron-loaded transparent. So that's kind of like putting gas into your car so it actually goes. And apotransparent is when the transparent leaves, the iron leaves the transparent and then recycles back out to look for it. So we load the transparent to a hollow transparent, transfect it, and we've been shown to get greater than 61% oral bioavailability of insulin, different types of peptides, proteins. So it mimics injection, IV injection, and it also has been shown to bypass stomach and enzymatic degradation. So, for example, we found transparent glutathione, so you can actually absorb glutathione. Babies can absorb glutathione, and it doesn't get destroyed in the gut. And that's why lactoferrin is in breast milk, so that babies can actually absorb iron for immunity. So it can bypass babies' complete digestive system and absorb systemically. Nature designed it, we followed it. So a lot of the stuff that we do at VIRUN, we try to follow natural mechanisms. The transparent, albumin, immunoglobulin, these are our protein ligands that we use to deliver different drug applications, or drugs. We produce natural micelles, so we don't take a compound that we're trying to put in a food. We don't alter the compound. We instead do what's called an emulsion and incorporate into a micelle, a natural micelle, using naturally derived compounds such as vitamin E. In this case, we have a sucrose fatty acid that we use. And we try to stay as close to nature as we possibly can, use natural mechanisms to not alter your endocrine system. To get back to the food beverage technology, myself, our company manufactures a lot of vitamins, colors, flavors using micelles and our vitamin E technology that produces nanoparticles. And one of the items that we produce is omega-3, EPA, and DHA. And our omega-3, it's dubbed as omega water. And it's a 20 nanometer particle size. And we've been shown to increase the oral bioavailability of omega-3, CoQ10, and a new compound we have is called TQQ, but also vitamin D And vitamin E, we have a product we actually market as a over-the-counter product for vitamin E for people with Crohn's disease who have a hard time absorbing vitamin E. But we get the particle size down to 20 nanometers so it can pass through what's called the brush border membrane. So your gut has these bristles that are called your brush border membrane, and they exist on your mucosa of your upper intestines. And they have a separation between the comb or the actual bristles itself about 10 to 20 nanometers. So the trick is to get the particle size utilizing a lipid of some sort, in this case vitamin E, and get the particle size between 10 and 20 nanometers so it can pass through that space in between the bristles of the brush border membrane. And that's one way of improving oral bioavailability, in addition to our transparent technologies. And so we utilize these micelles to not only make these compounds work in application like a food beverage type product, so it can dissolve into a water clear, or take curcumin and make it dissolve kind of like a clear orange color in Gatorade, so you have a natural color claim using curcumin instead of like FD&C colors. But also we do it to improve the bioavailability of some compounds. So a lot of our technologies are in soft gel format and drug applications as well. And just to explain further what a micelle, I'm sure you guys, if anybody's had biochemistry, right, touch base on micelles, liposomes. I know Govind was talking about their liposomal formulations that they do too. Liposomes are double-layered lipids, and they produce basically a thicker shelled wall that has twice as much hydrophilic than a micelle. Micelles produce very thin, single-layered walls, so I like to explain to people it's kind of like a kid blowing a bubble. It's like a micelle, whereas liposomes are kind of like mayonnaise. It's like a thick. They produce more dense emulsions compositions. But liposomes are good because it helps with sustaining a drug's what's called pharmacokinetic. And for injectables, liposomes are good because it can make the drug last longer. You have decreased half-life. Micelles are good because you get a smaller particle size than a liposome. In some cases, a micelle would have better bioavailability than a liposome. And it's interesting, a liposome, if you take it orally, it improves oral bioavailability of a compound, but the liposome itself has to actually convert into micelles for them to absorb. So liposomes convert into micelles. Higher bioavailability liposomes are great for injection for sustainability, improving PK. Micelles have what's called better pharmacodynamics. It can actually move faster. It can be more efficient for cell targeting because of its smaller particle size. So micelles are composed of single lipid monolayer comprised of a surfactant such as our vitamin succinate diester, other surfactants like polysorbates and polyoxyethylated compounds. Whatever ones that you guys probably know. You guys probably do polysorbate. Even in ice cream, and if you ever get a jar of pickles, if you look, you'll see polysorbate, and they use that in pickles in order to allow osmosis to occur in between the pickle and the brine that the pickles are in, so that it stays crunchy. We utilize natural micelles to encapsulate fat-soluble compounds. The outer shell of the micelle is polar, leaving the inner layer nonpolar. This allows the micelle carrying the nonpolar fat-soluble compounds with the omega-3 oil to dissolve clear into water, which reduces particle size. And I have a little cartoon comparing the two, but it's kind of obvious. A surfactant used to make a micelle, in short, it's an amphiphilic molecule, which basically means it's both fat-soluble, water-soluble. So we produce what's called a neutral HLB micelle. HLB is a hydrolipophilic balance. The scale is between 1 through 20. If you have something that's HLB of 10, you literally can dissolve that micelle into either fat or water. Encapsulating a fat-soluble compound inside the micelle allows it to dissolve into water, in some instances clear. And micellization of different nonpolar compounds, steroids, they're not only used for what we use it for, to increase the bioavailability of compounds and improve the oral bioavailability of steroids and different nonpolar compounds, but it's actually used for analytical preparation of different assays. So if you're running if you need to test a steroid and you want to show purity of the steroid, you're using gas chromatography, and the steroid's in some sort of system, a drug format, a dry capsule, tablet, injectable, whatever it is. You actually have to prepare the sample, convert it into a micelle, make it water soluble, do an extraction method, some modification, solvent extraction, and do this preparation so you can have this in a format where it can be tested to HPLC or GC. So it's used for analytical purposes too.
I got a quick question about the micelle.
Sure.
So are they more targeted for oral medication? So it's like, 'cause I know like that kind of happens in the stomach, like the whole when you like take in a fat or like non-polar, like micelles help to dissolve it.
That's right. Yeah. I think the best way to, first off, our body, anything that you have that's non-polar, like a fat, your body has to assimilate that into a micelle form for it to absorb.
Right.
But no, it's a good question because it's exactly why some certain prescription medicines, they ask you to take it with food. So you can add some sort of fat source, a fat source from a food, which is less processed. So you have things that are like lecithins, from egg has lots of lecithin, which is a phospholipid, contains phosphatidylcholine, stuff like that. So these help convert them into liposomes. Your body actually encapsulates those things naturally.
Yeah.
Breaks it down into micelles. So different drug applications, primarily for injectables, but also to improve the bioavailability of oral medications, they pre-encapsulate these things. So you can take them and have improved oral bioavailability of these compounds, and then you have more efficient bioavailability. And you have better pre-disposition of how the drug is going to actually, the PK, what the drug, how the dynamics are going to be performed inside the body.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned lecithin because I see that in a lot of, I think, liposomal and even micelle drugs. Like they use it to help emulsify, right?
Yeah, so emulsifiers got HOV like around 4. So it's straight oils like 1. Lecithins can be 4, so they can be even as high as like 9 or 10. And yeah, they're great because they contain phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylethanolamine, phosphatidyl'inositol, and all of these have different affinity for different parts of your body. For example, phosphatidylcholine for the gut. So you get better assimilation of micelles in the gut and better absorption in the gut. Phosphatidylethanolamine is used for targeting blood-brain barrier and drug formulations that are focused on brain-type drugs and different analogs that are for GABA receptors and things such as that. So yeah, it's a complex thing, and you can change the part. You can have micelles that are within liposomes, so you can actually produce micelles, encapsulate those, and then you can take the micelles and you can embed those inside liposomes, and then you can change the thickness of the micelle or the micelle or the liposomal wall. So depending on how much phosphatidylcholine you have in the drug, you can take a phosphatidylcholine type liposome and mix it with a micelle and produce a thinner walled micelle. And it sounds complicated. It's really simple. You just simply look at it. The more clear it is, if it's a liposome, the more clear it is, the smaller wall that the liposome has. The more dense it is, the thicker it is, the more cloudy it is, the more thicker the liposomal wall. And then it's same with micelles too. Micelles can have the large, but it's different with the thickness of the micelle wall. With micelles, it's how large the particle size is. So if you look at some polymer type encapsulations, they look white. Even injectables and drug applications, you'll see a white fluid material, and that's a larger particle size, say maybe even like 500 nanometers to a micron. And then when you get to micelle encapsulation emulsions where they're clear, that's typically less than 100 nanometer particle size. And particle size is very subjective. In fact, we had a patent application, and we had to show in our patent application, there's some other patent application that said that they tested turbidity and their composition was also clear. And so the USPTO came to us and said, okay, well, they're saying that theirs is clear. What makes yours different from theirs? And we said, well, we test 1 gram with this emulsion, with this much, with this concentration of oil, with a micelle and all this. 1 gram in 8 ounces of water. There's this other company did 1 gram in 10 gallons of water. So you can take something like mayonnaise and put 1 gram of that in the ocean, and you won't see it. It'll just disappear, and it'll be clear, hence the nanoparticle. But if you take 1 gram of mayonnaise and put in 8 ounces of water, it's going to make the 8 ounces of water kind of milky and cloudy. So yeah, particle size is very subjective in some cases. And I'm saying pretty much some of the same stuff here. But we do a lot of applications where we take curcumin and we take a turmeric extract, and which contains say 95% curcumin, which is used in a lot of beverage applications, food products. And we take it, we do a solvent extraction method where we take the curcumin and we encapsulate with our vitamin E succinate, and then we use the solvent extraction to lower the crystal size structure of the curcumin. And then we evaporate the solvent out, and then we emulsify that in water, and then we do what's called a spray dry process, basically remove the water. And you end up with this encapsulated curcumin powder that dissolves clear into water beverages. So you can add it to, like, say, Sunkist or Gatorade, and produces a clear orange with no sediment at the bottom. And we do that with things like astaxanthin, curcumin, different types of carotenoids for color and for supplementation purposes too. And so these are different applications that use these types of encapsulation. Daily, it's in all the stores, so that contains that vitamin A, D, E complex that we do encapsulate. Bang Energy uses our CoQ10. We have some drug applications for oral purposes and ampoule type applications and soft gel applications. We're an international business, so a lot of our omega-3 and products like that are in dairies. This is in Swaza Dairy in Puerto Rico and South America. There's actually a big market for encapsulation for what we do. So they put our omega-3 in those applications. It doesn't taste fishy or anything like that. And that's using some other technologies that we have, where we take the omega-3 oil or whatever, we can produce a powder or liquid form, dissolves clear, shelf stable, these types of applications. And we've developed IP. For example, we have one IP where we encapsulate our omega-3 with potassium bicarbonate. And then we found that potassium bicarbonate comes in, it displaces oxygen inside the water phase while we're producing. So we can produce omega-3 in an oxygen-free environment, and that reduces any kind of oxidation. And the potassium bicarbonate acts as a natural iron chelator. So the bicarbonate group comes in, binds to iron, and the iron won't have any interaction with omega-3, which will facilitate oxidation in the presence of oxygen, acid. So it becomes very complex.
So in these countries, when they're adding the omega-3, is it just because in their diet they don't get enough of it or something?
Yeah, it starts out they want their claim so that they can sell their milk over the other guy's milk. Second, yeah, it's to supplement omega-3. In particular, kids, they don't consume soft gels. So a lot of companies come to us and they want to fortify products with omega-3s. And they come to us because they want natural means. I need a safety net. There now. Now I look like the guy from Harry Potter or so. So they fortify. So kids and they come to us and they have a hard time getting omega-3 applications, and we're a small company, so we picked an industry, we picked a market where we can focus on a small niche market. So we're not competing against like DSM, these big companies in our industry. DSM is huge, like $80 billion a year or something like that. So it would be kind of ridiculous to try to compete with them in that market. We will lose. But here we've invented IP where we can focus on markets where other companies don't focus on. And for us, it's incorporating very aggressive type ingredients. Aggressive meaning you don't see them in food type products, and omega-3 being one of them. We have a new compound, it's called a PQQ, it's pyrroloquinone, and it has claims like increased mitochondrial pathogenesis, improves, stimulates new nerve cell growth, and it's a drug in Europe, and although it has what's called an NDI here in the U.S. And it's interesting because Gilead was saying how they have an IND process, which is a IND?
It's an investigation.
Yeah, investigational new drug. I get confused because in the supplement industry has NDI, which is a new dietary ingredient. And it's similar, it's maybe not 7,700 pages, it's more like 700 pages. But nonetheless, that came about, it's been more aggressive with the supplement industry and having to file NDIs and whether you should have an NDI or is it considered generally recognized as safe by the FDA, all these different things. I don't want to get into that, but so PQQ is an NDI, although we also have self-confirmed GRAS for that because we make beverages and we had to go through this whole route creating what's called a dossier and all that. But yeah, so we focus on these markets where we can have these applications, and it's helpful for newer, smaller brands who they want to compete against, say, Coke, Pepsi, and if they put a vitamin water out there with vitamin B's in there, and the same things that vitamin water have, they're just not going to compete on the shelf, price point. So they come to us and say, okay, what if our vitamin water has omega-3 DHA in it? Maybe people buy that over vitamin water. So we'll help them with that and foster that development. And but we also work with big companies too. In fact, VIRUN's distributed by DPSG and Pepsi and some of the bigger companies I can't mention because they scare me. But actually, Hormel Foods private labels are emulsions under their Fusions brand. Has to be in Captain Jack. We hang out together. I have lots of rum, and he always wants to drink my rum. So anyway, that was a trade show we had. We were showing off our technologies and making smoothies and waters. And at this trade show, we were displaying our technologies and comparing them to other people in our industry. I can't mention names, so the big companies in the flavor industry and stuff like that. So we said, come up to our booth. We will take omega-3, whatever it is, and actually make the drink right in front of your eyes, whatever flavor you want, to kind of showcase we can do this and how easy it is for us to do it. And I have to dress up a wizard because that's what you have to do these days when you're a small company. So that's our business, and that's my presentation on how to be a wizard. I really want to emphasize on those three tiers of academia and research and development, and research and development combined with combining like music, arts, and other than typical science and math, and trying to get a good understanding of things outside of science and math. I know for me it's been very successful. I have a very broad perspective on different things, and I try to incorporate that in kids. My son plays the drums, he's 6. My daughter plays the piano and stuff like that, but we encourage her to write her own music as opposed to just playing typical music, and it just it spawns new ideas, new concepts, and that combined with those fundamentals really helps you with the research and development. It helps you obtain patents, IP, because you're thinking out of the box, and that's how you can really capitalize on entrepreneurship and open up your own business and anything associated with invention. So if anybody has any questions?
I feel like I'm sitting the ground here, but I wanted to ask, is there any potential that maybe we might see a VIRUN sponsored drink or your own?
Yeah, we've been asked that. I'm going to take this off, CC. I'm a normal person. It's a good question, and we actually have a lot of customers, clients, and companies, big and small, and they're like, let's do our own product. Let's do our own product with VIRUN on the label. And we don't. There's a small part of this because we don't want to carry the liability of the finished product. We like the freedom of developing other people's products. And we must have 500 products right now in the hopper. We're in a very unique situation because we're doing research and development for huge companies, and we don't do them for say Coke or Pepsi necessarily. We do them for the companies that do development and supply to those companies. What's happened, and what's good for you guys, once you finish academia, your fundamentals is knowing the fact that a lot of these bigger companies that do their own finished products, they've really cut their R&D. They're not doing much development. So even the bigger companies that used to do development for these companies, companies that supply raw materials to food and beverage companies, even big drug companies, Merck, Pfizer, a lot of these big companies in almost any industry are in a whole slew of different industries, they don't have any development, so they're looking for people to develop things. Our company's success is taking advantage of these larger companies not being able to do development themselves. So they're coming to us and they're saying, hey, we have this, I have a company that's still, I can't mention that, but I can tell you that it's found in red pepper. It's very hot. It's a chemical. And they're wanting to encapsulate this so that they can add it because it's got some health claims associated. And they also want to use it for food to create a spiciness, but it's a little too pungent, and we want to improve upon that, and there's solubility issues with it. So we're working on that, and there's just so many different examples of these companies not having the ability to do these types of developments. There's just not a lot of, and it's not because people don't, like today, people don't have, aren't able to innovate or develop. A lot of it's just because a lot of these companies have really cut their R&D for those types of developments. And R&D is more so focused on verifying what other people can do for them. And that's where we come in. So I work with a lot of researchers on with these companies. I've made friends with these researchers. And I try to promote like joint IP with these big companies and small companies. So I have joint patents with Hormel Foods, several joint patents with other big companies in the industry, and that's a successful way of trying to work with other people to create, whether it's for business or it's just to utilize other people's expertise to create something. But it's fun. I went to a kid concert. Was it Sunday? Yeah, Sunday. Dan Zane and Friends. I don't know if you've heard of him. Dan Zane. He was actually in a popular rock band in the '80s called the Del Fuegos. But I went to his concert, and it's like a combination of rock and folk and jazz, and it's very multicultural. So I purposely brought my kids there so they can get an experience, because there's no such thing as rock and roll anymore. It's just, they hate it for what it is. But so I want them to understand this, have a concept of it, and I like the multicultural aspects of it. So we were there, and he was very cool. He was playing a song. He was talking about the writer Peter. He passed away this year. He wrote the song "Turn, Turn, Turn" from the Byrds, some other music from way back when. Anyway, I guess he passed away this year. So he was talking about him, and he was playing a song. It's a big song, forget it. But anyway, he was playing "Over the Rainbow" song, and he played that song, and he's like, he played a different rendition of it, and based on this guy Peter, and he ended the song, instead of saying "I," he said "we," and he's like, that's how this new generation is. That's how you have to. From my perspective, I took it as like, when you get out of school, you start working in R&D, you start working at a big company, developing whatever it is you're developing, IP, stuff like that. Become an entrepreneur. You really, today's society, it's so important to work with teams, work with other people, utilize what they know, and try to promote joint innovation as opposed to how it used to be a long time ago, where you'd have like one guy in a patent application. So, anybody else?
I have a question.
Sure.
What made you want to start your own company? Did you just have an idea that you wanted to elaborate on, or?
No, I didn't want to start my own company. I didn't know I was starting my own company. Yeah, crazy looking back. So, I was at a company, and I was under contract, and I couldn't work anywhere else. I worked at a small Chinese pharmaceutical company doing formulations for soft gel encapsulation, and I kind of knew a lot about emulsions, so I could put like water-soluble compounds in an oil-based soft gel, and I was doing stuff like that. Did that for a year until my confidentiality agreement was up, and I had some ideas that I wanted to, I guess, patent drug ideas with the transference and stuff like that. And at the same time, when I was at that company, and that's kind of like when you, through your life, you'll have a whole series of coincidences and different things that happen that kind of lead the way. And it's good to follow those when you're young, because you don't have anything kind of keeping you from doing that. Like if I try to do that now, I have 2 kids, I'm married, and all that stuff, it'd be just impossible. I'd be like, hey, heck no, I'm not going to do that. Just get a job, and cozy job, and just sit around and focus on that. But anyway, so I had some ideas, and I was just talking to a colleague of mine that worked at a different company, and he's like, I like those ideas. I got a few bucks. Let's open up a company and see what develops from those ideas. So we started the company, and some people started hearing about my concepts, and they actually wanted us to manufacture supplements, dietary supplements and stuff like that, food products. And we were looking for ways to help fund the drug technology that we wanted to file patents on. So we started a very small facility. We got an FDA license for manufacturing food products, and we started manufacturing dietary supplements. And we utilized the revenue from that business to help pay for the IP for the drug business. And it was not enough. It wasn't even a tenth of the amount that we needed. So, but we were able to at least get a base foundation for the IP, for the drug technology. To actually pay and fund the IP, it takes millions. So because we had the base foundation, and we were able to get investors involved in private equity and stuff like that. And we have a private equity firm that's a minority shareholder of our business, and they helped fund all our IP to where it is today. Now we have like 45 patents pending all over the world, and now we actually can help fund this IP ourselves. So we're manufacturing supplements, food and beverage technologies, and we don't manufacture drugs, but we have license agreement with drug companies, and they manufacture the drugs and pay us a royalty and licensing fees and stuff like that. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's okay.
It's basically something I didn't plan. It just happened that way. And if I knew I needed $10 million to really get this business afloat, I never would have started the business. I think as many entrepreneurs think, you need $10,000 and a few people, you can start your own drug company. And that's what I thought. I was probably maybe 28 or something, 29. Yeah, a little older than that, but. Steve?
Maybe you should tell them where you're located.
Yeah, we're located in Walnut. We have been since 2003. We actually have 5 scientists from Cal Poly Pomona. You may know some of them, Steve, because they've been in your classes. You have Yorizana, Shaira, Kunzi. You probably don't remember them.
Potentially, I might know. I saw their faces
A couple years ago. It's hard to remember 10,000 of those students, I'm sure. Now we're, Philip, right? Philip. I forget his last name, but he's doing an internship right now. And we have an intern starting, who goes to UC Berkeley, he's a pre-med student, starting in December. But yeah, we were in Walnut, California. We started there in 2003, primarily because my partner that I met with at that time had a facility there that he owned, and so we figured, hey, let's utilize that facility, turn it into a manufacturing facility, and it grew. And we got more space in that facility. We also have a facility in Florida. We do manufacturing, bulk manufacturing there, and we have a co-packing facility down in Riverside. And all our beverages, we produce everything from the raw material concentrate, the development work, and we actually produce the finished products as well. And we had to do that because manufacturing a beverage with omega-3, or a lot of people don't want to put preservatives in there, so we focus on clean label claim. So you have to do things like use distilled water. So we have a facility that can actually make distilled water, so there's no iron content to cause oxidation. And we do something where we liquid nitrogen what's called the headspace of the beverage, so we dump liquid nitrogen in there. It displaces all the oxygen inside the bottle, and we cap it. So there's 0 oxygen. And that helps you so you don't have to use a preservative, because if you take an environment to remove oxygen from it, then you reduce the risk of antimicrobial activity. Also, they use liquid nitrogen in industry to keep bottles from what's called paneling. So you see those thin wall bottles that we have today, like Arrowhead, water and stuff, and they squeeze. So when you grab them, you feel a little bit of pressure. So they dump either ozone or liquid nitrogen in there, gas, and it kind of puffs out the bottle under about 3-4 pounds of pressure. We're actually trying to get a facility here on campus.
You should.
What's that?
You should.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So Yeah, we're trying to get a facility. We will, in under 5 years, we'll have a facility here. And we're actually raising the funds for right now. And it's going to be primarily a development facility. But our expectation's a little high. We presented the foundation with our designed infrastructure. And what we want is we want to put a facility, and we want to put a big helix water slide. We have a big atrium in the front. And we put a big helix water slide that's 2 stories up that goes right through the center of the building. And then if you're looking at the facility on the left side, there's going to be a redwood forest. But redwood trees are drought resistant, and they grow them up near Santa Cruz. We'll bring them over plant and stuff like that. So redwood forest, and we'll have a river going through the redwood forest. And so, you know, with inner tubes, you can go down, drink beers, whatever, on weekends, I don't know. And then there'll be a driveway that goes through the redwood forest, and there's a parking lot at the back. So you have to drive through the redwood forest every day going to work or whatever. And then you have to park your car, then you have to walk through the redwood forest to get into the front of the building. We thought about putting a jungle on the right side with monkeys and stuff like that. We decided that's going to be too far. But so we're pushing for the water slide and the redwood forest and the river. Yeah, I'm serious. Yeah. Well, it's for us. We're kind of now in industry. We're a little bit more rebellious in industry. We get a lot of attention because of that. But it's not because we try to for PR purposes or anything like that. We just have fun. We're trying to astray from that typical conservative type business, and we're trying to. We have scientists. We have people that are innovative. We're trying to support innovation. And you just cannot have that kind of atmosphere. It's just an innovation killer. So we really just try to be who we are and try to have fun at work. The facility would not have any walls in it. It's going to be completely open. And I think that the students here would like a redwood forest. Set up benches, they can study there, they can hang out, whatever. I think having a facility like that would be good for the university. I think if you went to Google Images and typed in Cal Poly Pomona, that would be the first image that pops up. So, but yeah, the builders, the foundation, they're not opposed to it. So we're kind of working our way and see if we can get it done in the next 5 years.
We just unlike you, we just opened up a brewery here.
I was just there. I didn't have a beer, but I was there. I have pictures of it when you guys were first building it too. I walked through it. It's awesome. That's great. So.
Okay, well, I think we should move forward. If you didn't sign in, I think it's signed somewhere around here. Thank you for coming, and thank you for staying. Make sure you get your name on the sign sheet. And for Biotier,